Hi folks, I'm Dave Gallus, your host. Welcome back to We the People. We have a special guest today, Eloy, E-L-O-Y, look for it on the ballot, Eloy Francisco Macha. Frank, it's a pleasure to see you again.
Likewise, Dave.
And it's so important, folks, that you get out and vote. Early elections start October 5th, 3 locations, City Hall, next to the library. You've got NMSU at the Corbett Center, and you also have Sonoma Ranch Elementary School in East Mesa. So important that you vote. Got to get out and vote. Our schools are so important. We care about our kids like you do. And Eloy absolutely cares about our kids. And you're going to find out that in this next half-hour show. So, Eloy, your background, you are not from the United States originally.
No, that is correct, Dave. I am an immigrant to this country.
Okay.
I am a proud American. I come from Peru. So that gives an interesting perspective of, of coming here to this country and what were the differences, good and bad, between a place like Peru and here in the United States.
So what's the difference? I mean, have you seen changes in Peru? Has it always been a certain way? Or?
So the last time I was physically there was in 1984.
Okay.
But outside looking in, seeing the trends of where Peru is headed, it makes you realize how fortunate and how much grateful I am personally to be here in America.
So what is the downside of Peru now?
From a politics perspective, it's actually pretty bad. They recently just went through an election, and they elected a president that's an open communist.
Communist?
He is actually wanting to bring in a lot of very far left communistic ideas.
So I guess it's fair to say Peru is more of a socialist country, and now it's moving toward communism.
That is absolutely correct.
And you can see the difference between what the U.S. has now, but it scares me to see the way the U.S. is going. Have you seen that yourself?
Oh, so over the last 30 plus years that I've been here in this country, actually I've been here in this country since 1986.
Okay.
It took me 20 plus years to become an American citizen. I became one in 2005. But over that span of time, since the 1980s to where I am today, right now, yes, you can definitely see the shift that America has gone through. And quite frankly, it's very concerning, especially for myself. I'm a recent grandparent. My granddaughter is 3 months old.
Congratulations.
Thank you. But I start to wonder, and I worry, what America is she going to be growing up into, versus the America that I came here and quote, grew up, if you will.
Right.
What America is she growing up to? I want her to at least have the same America that my kids, Pablo and Nayeli, grew up with. And just maintain that at the very least.
So you're concerned. Now, folks, you got to understand, school board members don't get paid. This is all volunteer work. This man, Eloy Francisco Macha, is doing this for your kids, for your granddaughter, and of course other grandchildren, I'm sure, that come along. So
that's correct.
So your motivation is certainly honorable, and I appreciate that. Could you tell us, your school board district is District 3.
Correct.
So what is the area?
So District 3 is the southeastern portion of Las Cruces. So if you can map that out, imagine Lowman and I-25 all the way south, hit Missouri, all the way to Solano, all the way south towards Mesquite, and then towards White Sands. So it's pretty broad.
Okay, but generally south of the city.
Correct.
Okay. One of the big issues that I've been to school board meetings is this JBC, and I'm afraid that this JBC is the lead into critical race theory.
That is absolutely correct.
Now, is that okay?
It is correct. So JBC policy, JBC is in the acronym of this policy. The actual policy title is Equity and Excellence. But if you start reading the policy contents, it brings a lot of, basically critical race theory themes that now are going to be adopted here by the Las Cruces School District.
Can you tell us what critical race theory does or is?
So critical race theory is this idea that systemic racism exists here in the United States. This idea that we're still living in this oppressor culture, that we're living in this class conflict struggles, and that racism is everywhere.
But we're talking about the Las Cruces school system. I don't see any racism in the Las Cruces school system. Do you? I mean,
so we're talking about Las Cruces school system, but we're all talking about the Las Cruces community. The Las Cruces community is a multi-ethnic community, number one.
Sure.
Number two, we are 60% plus or minus Hispanic, so we are a majority minority. And with that, a lot of our students, again, are multi-ethnic. If we look at all of their lineages, right, heritage-wise, it's a rich heritage that we have here in Las Cruces.
Sure.
And we have to honor and respect that. But this idea of JBC to provide quote, equity and excellence through the introduction of critical race theory themes
It's
not solving a problem that we have.
Yeah, I remember going to school board and I asked I think it was Harmio, the president, and I said, where did the complaints come from? Where are the complaints? Are the parents complaining? Is the community complaining? Are the students complaining? But there was no answer. I don't see it. I don't see any racism. So, but I would think that if there was a problem, it should be handled immediately by the teachers, the superintendent, as well as the school board. But I haven't seen any problems whatsoever. So where's this coming from?
So this is where the nuance exists, and you have to kind of peel a number of layers. So if you're allergic to peeling onion or cutting an onion, you're going to start crying. No, but the point of that is the JBC policy, equity and excellence, came about of the Martinez-Yassi ruling from a couple of years ago.
Yeah, but that was Native American. And that had to do with a different portion of the New Mexico.
That is correct. It attempted to address, or rather, let me rephrase that. The Supreme Court of New Mexico directed the Public Education Department of New Mexico to please address the inequalities. In other words, our Native American population was not being provided equal opportunities in accessing education resources.
And I think it had to do with money, didn't it? There wasn't enough money going to that special area that they were zeroing in on.
It's not only money, but it was also around access to technology, access to educational resources for the success of those students.
Okay.
Now, that's a great call out. I think we can recognize that New Mexico is a rural environment. We're very dispersed out wide. And it is unfortunate that a lot of our pueblos, a lot of our smaller communities are not getting the right funding to ensure that they have equal access to education.
But is that happening in Las Cruces?
That's a great question. So from education perspective, you have to ask how much of the school district's budget is being felt in our classrooms.
Oh.
So with that, number one. Number two, what problems is JBC really addressing here in Las Cruces? So you made a comment earlier, if we have a problem, we should solve it right there and then. So the problems that we have here in Las Cruces are around academic success. In other words, are we preparing our students properly for their future, academically? Number one. Number two, there is a problem around bullying that we are seeing in our schools.
Yeah, but I don't think that the problem of bullying started until they started talking about this JBC or critical race theory, because now they're creating a division.
So JBC is going to introduce a set new of problems, and it's actually going to exacerbate a lot of these problems.
Sure.
So bullying does and has existed in the past, unfortunately. But with the introduction of critical race theory themes in our K-12 environment, now you're going to have students that go, hey, I'm going to judge you because you are different than me.
Different skin color.
Different skin color, or you're
That's racism.
So now you're introducing those quote group think type of concepts.
Right.
And now, guess what? You're going to start seeing an increase of bullying from one group of kids to another group of kids. Absolutely. What's so scary about how bullying is being addressed, or rather not addressed, is our educators and our principals have their hands tied in that they cannot directly address bullying phenomena that they're seeing. I've talked to a number of parents. Actually, there's two parents that in my door knocking that they raised this issue to them. Right. Going, hey, these two parents are multi-ethnic families. Their children are fair-skinned, and they're telling me, hey, I'm experiencing bullying in middle school, in elementary school, and I ask them why. I don't know, other than just I have a fair skin. So, and I asked the parents, have you approached the teachers? Have you approached the principals? The answers from both parents are, yes, I approached them, but they're telling me they can't do anything about it. That the student cannot defend themselves, the student cannot stand up for himself, that the student should go to the educator and the principal, but the educator or principal can only act if they catch the bullying in the act, quote, quote.
They don't follow up on any complaints. Well, that's the whole point. If that's what I asked at the school board, where are the complaints?
Correct.
And obviously there are some complaints, but they're not being addressed.
Exactly. So and this goes back to this, is JBC going to address that? No, it's going to exacerbate it.
Yeah, it's going to make it worse.
Yes.
Absolutely. Now, I grew up in a Catholic school, and I was in a fist fight maybe once a week in the schoolyard. And the nuns would beat the crap out of both of us. No matter who won the fight, you were going to take a beating. And you knew that, but you had to stand up for yourself. Well, when you got people that say, we want to stop bullying, but we're not going to back you up when you make a complaint, What is that?
Right. So now, with that context, I mean, we're not saying, hey, you go ahead and start fighting it out and duke it out. No.
But I'll bet you kids are going to result to that if they're not getting backed up by the teachers.
There you go. So you have to prevent that escalation.
Sure.
So this is where you have to ensure that if a student says, hey, I feel threatened, I have a problem, educators and principals should be empowered to act on that.
Right.
And it should encourage both, the families involved in this to have a face-to-face, heart-to-heart conversation so that we resolve any issues. At the end of the day, our school systems are here for the benefit of all of our students, period.
Sure.
It needs to be an environment where our students feel not only safe, but they can start succeeding in their academic successes.
Sure.
So if we don't enable that environment, then we're failing the entire system.
The one key you just said, parents.
Yes.
Folks, this man is willing to fight for you. You have to help him. Once he gets in office, you have to support him as a parent to support the children. So it's so important that parental and grandparents and community get involved in the whole operation.
So this is that interesting, call it misnomer around the schools and the school systems. They say that it's only for students and only parents that have students should be involved.
No.
Wrong. The school district is to benefit the entire community. That
Sure.
means students, parents, educators, grandparents, community leaders, the entire community. Why is that? Because everybody that graduates from 12th grade will now be impacting the entire community.
And what if they graduate and they're not smart? What if they don't have a good education and yet they're pushed through to graduate? They're going to become criminals, or they're going to get a job at McDonald's. They're not going to have a job opportunity that they could have if they got a good education. They're not going to have the opportunity to go to college or trade school or whatever, an apprenticeship somewhere. So now it's going to be an impact on the community. You might have kids that are going to welfare immediately instead of the work system.
And we're seeing that right now. Back in 2018, Las Cruces Public Schools was very proud to say 90% of our students have graduated. That same year, the proficiency rate of our 12th graders were in the 30%. Proficiency around reading, writing,
30%.
comprehension, and math. That is correct, Dave.
They're not going to be able to get a job.
So I've talked to a number of business leaders here in the community, and a number of them are saying, my goodness, I'm spending a lot more time in training the students that are recently graduated,
Right.
so that they can do these jobs of ours. And they're struggling, if you will call it the cost-benefit ratio.
Sure.
I'm spending way too much time on this instead of focusing on my students, and instead of focusing on my job or my business. Some of them, unfortunately, have taken the action of saying, I'm not going to hire anyone because I cannot spend time in training them on basic skills. So this is where there are opportunities. So we have to be careful about dwelling too much in the negative.
Yeah.
There's an opportunity to be had here. So in talking to these business leaders, that potential of community involvement maybe is about encouraging our students so that they understand what the real world is like. Imagine a 15-year-old, a 16-year-old that's starting to have an internship type of engagement with a small business.
Sure.
So they understand that, oh my goodness, I talk to customers. I have to man a cashier. I need to understand what finances are all about.
Right.
Now they understand why education is that more important.
This is great, Frank. Eloy Francisco Macha, School Board District 3. We're going to take a short break and come back. He's going to have all the solutions to our problems. We'll see you in a minute.
If your loved one has passed away due to COVID-19, pay close attention to this message. You could be entitled to a death benefit of over $300,000. The U.S. government has set up a fund to pay families relief if they've lost a loved one due to COVID-19. The compensation includes a death benefit and lost wages benefit. Time is limited, so we urge you to make a free phone call right now. There's no cost to you for this claim. That's 866-372-3669.
When the school board mismanages its financial and fiduciary obligations, does not respect the will of the community, and pursues misguided policies not reflective of the community, we lose our trust and our parents deserve more. School board members are accountable for the regulations and policies they pursue. As these regulations and policies are debated, full transparency must occur in the deliberations with parents and the community. Trust is earned when the school board demonstrates its adherence to the will of the community. Join me in restoring accountability and transparency. I'm Eloy Francisco Macha, School Board District 3.
Paid for by Macha for LCPS.
Hi folks, welcome back to We the People. I'm Dave Gallus, your host, and we have as our special guest today, Eloy Francisco Macha. He's running for Las Cruces School Board District 3, which is basically south of the city. And I'll just say Frank, but really on the ballot it's going to be Eloy Francisco Macha. Remember that name, very important. So we were talking about how Las Cruces School Board seems to be missing the mark in that they're focusing on critical race theory, or they call it JBC, equity and excellence in schools, but they're not taking care of the important things like getting our students ready for the workforce.
Correct.
So I see that the school board doesn't seem to listen to what the people want. I've been to school board meetings where we're packed, and they seem to vote directly the opposite. So I don't see a lot of parents at these school board meetings. How important is parental involvement in this?
It's huge. Not just parental involvement, community involvement.
Community involvement.
So we have to remember, school board members are representatives of their district.
Right.
So it means that they don't represent only those that elected them. They don't represent the 500 or 700 or 800 that voted for them to be there.
Right.
They represent the entire school district. District 3 has roughly 14,000 plus or minus of eligible voters. But as school board member, I would not just represent those eligible voters. I represent the entire constituents of District 3.
Sure.
Educators, students, parents, grandparents, community members out of there.
Not only that, there's 5 members on the school board, I think.
That is correct.
That's including the president.
Yeah, that is correct.
So, but when your vote, 1 of 5 vote, counts for the whole Las Cruces schools.
So you have to make sure that there is a direct line of feedback from our community.
Oh, yeah.
As a district member. So, as an example, District 3 member that I would be representing District 3, if a policy or regulation comes to my desk, I would seek that input from my community,
right,
from my constituents. To
and
make
each school board member should do the same.
Should do the same. So, to your point about the JBC policy that was recently adopted,
right.
Where is that feedback? Can we trace back to each of the representatives or the school board members, as to what feedback they received?
Well, I went to the meeting, and they said, this is a moot point. When we were arguing this, they said because it was already passed. And I'm thinking, well, where was the public input?
And this is their other misnomer. Right now, they claim they have public input in the school board meetings, but all it is just a 3-minute or 5-minute comment period. Are those actually being listened to, or are those actually being influenced by, do those influence directly the school board members? Right now, I hate to say it, it sounds like it's just for show.
Well, I remember they're playing on their iPhones while people are talking. These people took the time out of their day to come and talk and to try and explain how they feel,
yes,
and they're ignoring the people.
And this is where that accountability aspect comes into play.
Right.
No, are you, the school board member, actually listening to all the parents that are showing up to these school board meetings? But not only that, can you demonstrate that you are listening to all your constituents and be able to trace that back when you're voting on a policy or a regulation or a resolution? That's missing right now, David.
Well, I remember asking a question of Jaramillo, the president, and I said, where did the complaints come from with this that's going to implement this JBC policy, which to me is critical race theory? He said, we're not allowed to answer. What do you mean you're not allowed to answer? Does that make any sense, folks? You ask a question of the school board and they're not allowed to answer? To me, public input means a two-way street. You talk, you get answers. We got nothing.
Transparency. We need transparency, David.
Well, how about the school board meetings? How often do they meet?
So there are 2 public style meetings that the school board has. There's what they call the regular scheduled meetings, and then they have the work sessions.
And both of these people can speak up in?
Yes. So
Okay.
public comments are allowed in those type of sessions.
Okay.
Those meetings occur once a month, so there's 2 opportunities every month for community members
So
to
there's 2
participate
meetings a month.
that are public in nature.
And
That
I
is
think you
correct.
were telling me the times they are?
So work session meetings are typically around 4 o'clock in the afternoons.
Yeah, but parents that are working, they can't get there at 4 in the afternoon.
That is correct.
That has to change.
That not only that has to change, but also the location where they are.
Ah,
So here we are. The school board sessions all occur at the central building, the Las Cruces Administration Building, there
Right.
on Main Street.
right.
The question is, from a time perspective, is 4 o'clock the right time or 6 o'clock the right time? A lot of our community members are working. A lot of our parents
Okay.
are working. Is that the right time for them to participate? Is that the right location? Maybe we need to have our school board meetings that's more closer to where our parents or communities are.
Well, how about the schools themselves?
There you go.
Okay.
So that is going to be one of my very first areas of focus.
Good.
Starting January 1, after being elected and sworn in,
Good.
to put a policy in place such that all school board meetings occur at the cafeterias and gyms of all of our schools and rotate
And
them
the
out.
parents
throughout
know
the schools.
exactly where to go.
And it's
That's
closer
where
to
their
them.
kids go. They're more comfortable there.
Not only our parents, but also our educators.
And you say community, not just parents. I keep saying parents, but it's really the whole community.
It
Because if we have kids that graduate but are illiterate, they could be criminals. They could be working at a dead-end job. They could be, they're talking about, I mean, I don't even know what the teachers are getting paid, but it doesn't seem like it's worth it.
Oh my goodness, that's another interesting story altogether, Dave. Las Cruces School District, primary focus is academic success of our students.
Right.
But in order to do that, we need to ensure that we have all the resources aligned and felt in our classrooms.
Sure.
Who else is in our classrooms? Our educators. Our educators are the front line of our academic
Absolutely.
success. So we need to ensure that we also have the right resources in supporting our educators. Dave, there's a huge challenge right now here local in our Las Cruces Public Schools that has not been addressed by anyone, our school district members, our school board administrators, or even the Public Education Department of New Mexico. It's sad to say that a lot of our school teachers, our educators, are questioning whether or not they're in the right field.
Oh, geez.
There is this rise of attrition. There is this rise of resignations that we need to get ahead of. We need to focus on ensuring that our school district not only retains our school educators, but we have their back.
So you need to pay them a fair wage. And I mean, I can't imagine a more important job than a teacher. And you need to back them up when they have a problem or an issue that's going on.
Correct. But we also need to work directly with the educator.
Absolutely.
So school board members need to talk to their educators.
Okay.
Not representatives of the educators, but the educators themselves to see exactly what do they
Sure.
need, what are their challenges.
Sure.
The door knocking that I've gone through already, a number of comments have been, hey, I want to have a career path, I want to have a career growth, but I do not get that support from the school district to make that happen.
Mm-hmm.
That shouldn't be something that gets negotiated, if you will, through an intermediary. It needs to be a direct engagement between the educator, the superintendent, and the school board representatives.
Sure. Now, so the people elect the school board members, and then the school board members actually solicit and hire the superintendent, right?
That's
so if you
correct.
get the right people elected, you can get the right superintendent, and you can all work together.
To make impact for Las Cruces.
Sure.
This is where that engagement from the community is in place, and you need to bring down accountability to the school board members to make that happen.
Folks, you got to get engaged. And Eloy, there's something coming up that they're going to have standards and redevelopment. Now, people should have public input in this,
Right.
and they can go to the LCPS.net, and we'll bring it up on the screen. LCPS.net. You can find out who your school board member is. You can contact them. You can contact the superintendent. You can contact your legislators to put pressure on the school board members if you think they're not listening to you. And this is how people can engage.
That is correct. So just to recap, school board members are responsible for policies and regulations and resolutions in the school district. But who is responsible for a lot of the, call it education direction, if you will, in the state of New Mexico, is the Public Education Department in Santa Fe,
PED.
the PED. This is where, as a community, we need to also put pressure in our legislators, call it our senators, our representatives at the
Right.
state level, to ensure that they're hearing our voice, that the PED needs to make sure that it's solving and addressing issues of New Mexicans.
I see.
Not bring in problems from San Francisco, Chicago, or New York
Right.
that don't belong here.
Right. No, this
New
is our
Mexicans from
community.
New Mexico.
This is our community. Okay, we're getting shy on time now. So is there anything that you would like to say to the audience? Besides, you need to get elected, so our kids are in good shape here.
And I appreciate that. Please, family and friends, neighbors here in Las Cruces, I seek your support for this upcoming election. I will say to you, I am not a politician. I actually I am a community member. I want to make that impact, and I want to be your voice here in the school district to make the right choices and take the Las Cruces public school system in the right direction for the benefit of our future. Our students are our treasure. They are the most precious gifts that we have. Our school system needs to ensure that they're providing everything needed for their success in the future.
Eloy, this is great. I get a sense that our school board is not listening to us. We need people that will listen and will work with us and with our students. It's so important, folks, that you get out and vote. Early voting starts October 5th. That's not far off. And if you get out early and you vote in person, you minimize the chance of any cheating going on. We want a fair and honest election, and Eloy Francisco Macha is the guy that you want to vote for in School Board District 3, south of the city. We got a little bit of time left, and I'm thinking, I ran for state senate against the fellow that was the top senator in the state in education. And I think we're at the bottom of the barrel when it comes to pre-K through 12th grade.
We are.
Now, I'm thinking, how could I have lost against this fella unless the word didn't get out? Or maybe there might have been a little hanky-panky with the election. Some people say a lot, but the whole point is if we get out early, if we get out in person, we minimize the chance.
Correct.
Make sure your vote counts. And you want to vote for the people that you know about. You're getting a story on Eloy Francisco Macha, School Board District 3, and there's two other good, solid candidates that want to take care of our children. And that's
Abel Balcazar
for
District 1
and
Henry Young for District 2.
Okay, these are people that you want to consider. So folks, we'll see you next week. I don't know what the story is going to be about next week, but it'll be something great. This is Dave Gallus from We the People. See you next week.